1976 was the year that put Kiss on the map in Australia. In January, the live version single of Rock and Roll All Night made it to number 18 on the charts. Kiss Alive saw a 38-week chart run, making it to number 13. And finally, Destroyer became their first album to break into the top 10, making it to number 6 in an 18-week run on the Australian charts. Already as early as November of 1975, their Australian record label Astor Records tried to organise the first Kiss tour Down Under. According to local promoters Paradigm, venues were never actually put on hold because they just couldn't meet the financial guarantee for the shows that Kiss wanted in order to come. They started negotiating in January, and the promoters flew over and saw a show in the US just before the band flew to Europe in May of 1976. However, after Destroyer was released, the new stage show meant the freight cost and guarantees had to increase, and thus talks kept stalling right up to December 1976. The venues of the showgrounds in Sydney and the Myer Music Bowl in Melbourne were considered, but again never actually put on hold. Local newspaper The Observer had a monthly music pullout called Observer Pop, and in the November 1976 issue it was stated that the band would be coming to Australia in April of 1977. Ace Frehley has also been quoted to say that Australia was included in his tour itinerary for the Japan tour of April 1977, but he didn't know why the dates didn't come to fruition. It would appear that a workable deal simply couldn't be struck at that time. The promoters then flew to Japan in April of 1977 to see a show, hoping to secure an Australian tour after the next album, which would be Love Gun. But again, the guarantee just couldn't be met, so no contracts were ever drawn up, and the promoters finally pulled out completely in 1978 after losing money on financially disastrous tours by Bob Dylan and the Beach Boys. In 1979, Kiss released Dynasty, and powered by the smash hit I Was Made for Loving You, it went all the way to number 2 on the charts, triggering mass Kiss hysteria in Australia along the way. A different local promoter team, Kevin Jacobson and his partner, had also begun talking to the band at the end of 1978. Finally, the timing was right, and this would be the team that managed to bring Kiss over to Australia at the end of 1980. But it all began 4 years earlier, as everything was geared for an Australian tour to take place at the end of 1976. The record label even organized for an interviewer to fly to New York to record a lengthy interview with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons in the summer of 1976. That interview was never broadcast, as the proposed 1976 tour didn't materialize as planned, but now you can finally listen to the full unedited interview in all its glory. Take it away, Gene and Paul.
Test 1 2. If you haven't already guessed what those sounds are, that's the sounds of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley from Kiss.
Separate on the wire and separate, and you buy just plugins. So if one wire breaks, you always have them touching.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's really what we should have done. 1 2 3 4. Anyway, this one goes. But how am I going to get over to you? That's the problem.
We can put it over.
Actually,
somehow raising it off the ground.
I'd like to hold it.
Okay, why don't you stand?
Gene,
why don't you sit between us? Come in the middle.
Swap your seats. Yeah.
Somehow this makes sense. I don't know why. Put it in the action.
I know. You know,
everybody. We'll go like this.
Look, this is an iron-on little thing that you can iron on a t-shirt. I know it's Susie, but
okay.
That's our radio station.
I like Susie.
More music, 3XY.
When are you going to have one of us?
Yeah, why don't we?
Yeah, put this on your t-shirt.
Yeah, you iron it on.
Yep. Alright. Is this from Australia?
Yeah, that's...
Why is it from the USA?
Because it's your patent idea. It's a rubber type finish.
Oh, yeah.
It's that rubber type.
Yeah.
You feel
you
it.
iron it all.
Funny.
So, tell me.
That is funny. Yeah. That's like, actually, I know something. Yes. Hello, testing 1 2 3 4.
Did that pick that up? No, let's test it again.
It's Sunday evening in New York, and I have Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley from Kiss here now. First of all, thank you for working on a Sunday afternoon.
As long as it's needed, we are here.
And Gene. It's called the Day Off Blues. Okay, well, look, we appreciate the chance to get an interview because there's so many people in Australia that are very interested in the band record sales.
Is it true the girls are big in Australia?
No, girls are big in America, I think. In Australia, they're beautiful. That was heavy, wasn't it?
Well, no, I'll go.
That's funny, but no. Since we've been over here, we've seen a lot of girls that are big, like large girls. Maybe it's McDonald's.
Why are you holding your
Yeah, it's
hands up?
McDonald's.
It's McDonald's.
That's right. Blame it on the Bossa Nova.
Okay, well, look, 2 and a bit years you've been at it, and 5 albums, and now you're sort of pulling in audiences and breaking records all over the world.
I broke the record yesterday.
Did you?
Threw it on the floor and broke.
Right?
Yes.
It hasn't been easy for you. No, it went over. We'll just cut that out. No. It hasn't been easy for you, obviously, and there's had to be the bad times as well as the good. So can we quickly sort of just go back to those early days?
Yes.
How did the band get together?
Well, Gene and I were playing together. We've been playing together for about, now it's got to be, about 6 years, 5-6 years. Keeps getting longer, and I hate it, because
It can't be that long.
it has, because we were working in the studio around my 18th birthday, which was 20. No, yes.
So you've been involved. You've been involved in a lot of obviously session work and things like that
Yeah.
prior to the band getting together.
Yeah.
Now, is it an interesting story how the whole 4 of you got together?
Well, it's really not that interesting. It's really not. We could make a big to do about it. What happened was Gene and I were playing together, and we wanted to go in a certain direction. We wanted to put together a band that would really put on a phenomenal stage show. We were influenced by, your English bands, The Who, people who were really dynamic.
Also like the Easy Beats.
Yes, the Easy Beats.
From Australia.
Absolutely.
That was the only band, That was the only band from Australia that really everybody all of a sudden picked up their ears. For the time,
On my mind.
for that time, that record was phenomenal. I wish somebody would come out with a heavy version of that.
They have, but it was Brian Ferry came out with a version of that. It was terrible. Sorry, Brian. And after that, Gene and I fired the band we were working with, or split, or whichever way you want to put it. And Peter had an ad in Rolling Stone, the magazine, drummer seeks band, will do anything, desperate for fame. And Peter joined us, and that was the 3 of us. Then we rehearsed for a couple of months and starved and lived in a little room on 23rd Street. And then Ace walked in. Ace walked in after we auditioned about 30 or 40 guitar players, and banged into the wall a couple of times, fell, and played the guitar, and he was in the band. And from then it was just a lot of hard work, starving.
Right. How did you stumble across the name Kiss?
Well, there was a pebble on the road, and as we were walking, we stumbled, and lo and behold, it said Kiss. No,
Well, that's a good title for a rock and roll band.
If you,
Stumble.
No, Pebble.
Oh,
in the,
Pebble in the foot.
rock and roll.
we were going to call it Don't You Stop.
No, actually, we were right. There were 3 of us. At the time, it was a trio. That was when Peter, what's your name again? Oh, Paul and myself were in a car, and we were riding to get, I think we were going to Paul's house, and we were going to stop off at a hamburger joint. It was Wetson's. That's what it's called.
McDonald's.
Right.
And in the car, we had started. By that time, we had already started playing the new material and thinking about where we wanted to go and what kind of concept it was going to be. And I think we were half kidding or something, but I said, why don't we call the band that 4-letter word that is a substitute for loving? Exactly. And everybody kind of laughed and said, Paul,
Threw him out of the car.
as it was going. And then it was Paul that said, well, that's close, but how about Kiss? And that's when we threw him out of the car. So we started playing folk rock, and ever since we've been happy bluegrass musicians.
Yeah, just like the choir. Weren't you called some sort of a choir then?
Well, we actually
The
had...
Brooklyn Boys Choir?
No, they were
actually a Brooklyn Boys Choir. Brooklyn Boys Choir. And
They're stealing your hubcap.
Planet of the Apes. And they did the chorale, or whatever you want to call it. They did the chorale on Great Expectations. We got them on probation just so they could do that.
You know, the strange thing is that these kids, Brooklyn is a very kind of quaint place. There are about 3 million people living in it, and it's just a part of New York. There are 5 different parts, counties they're called. Boroughs, actually, they're boroughs. And these kids come from Brooklyn, where everybody talks like this. Now everybody's getting ready to do their session, and right before their parts came, they're talking like that, and all of a sudden they become very angelic. You've got great, and they switch to that magically. That was interesting. Oh, see, it's good.
Cut that out too.
It's working.
It's working, by God.
No, I tell you, I'm quite concerned because this here.
I'm Gene.
I'm watching your.
You can't say that. That's a good name for a band, though.
Your VU meter here. It says the microphone is working.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deja vu.
Keep your eye on it. All right. The stage routine of the band is something that's not compared to by any other band in the world. It's a routine that's really extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, whose idea was that to combine this theatrical performance on stage with obviously the musical talents that you have?
I think if anybody really lets their imagination go wild and can really loosen up, Gene's looking at me like, tell me about it. If you can really loosen up and let yourself go wild, you can come up with probably something very similar to what we did. We did it first. It's kind of like a rock and roll Disneyland.
Mickey Mouse. Now look, you must have had this idea that you weren't going to go onto the streets until you had this act together, until you had the right music, the right stage act, and the right makeup,
And the right bank.
And the right arm.
the right bank manager. So there's been a lot of foresight gone into that. Do you attribute that to the rapid
Forsyth, you tell.
Yeah, I know John Forsyth.
I didn't want to say it.
But we were afraid of saying it because we didn't know if our father knows best, or what is it? My uncle, the father, or
Father
something?
knows best.
No, that wasn't it. My uncle, the father, Uncle Bentley, that's what it was.
Life with Bachelor Father.
Bachelor father.
Okay, so we've given Gene Forsyth his plug. Yeah, we got that.
How is John?
He's fine.
Okay, I'm Gene.
Hi, Gene. Hi, Gene.
Mental hygiene.
Hygienically speaking.
Yes.
Right, Firehouse would be appropriate enough to depict some of those wild actions?
Yeah.
That's where we swim on stage. In Firehouse, we threw water at the audience.
No. What happened in the beginning? We didn't even plan.
Can you imagine? We're talking to you right now, and there are 4 things over there.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we didn't even plan it that way. We just wrote songs that were very visual in concept. So you had Firehouse and
Water.
Waterhole, Niagara Falls. Yeah, we had songs that just
Saturday night in Albuquerque.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
You have Albuquerque in Australia.
No, we went to Albuquerque.
You can hurt yourself saying that. Albuquerque, Australia. And then you can big words.
Do you know in Albuquerque, everybody drives around in circles in a car. They don't get out. They just drive around and around in circles.
Sounds like a bird, like an
Albuquerque. Yeah. There's an Albuquerque.
That's funny. The airline system there, I forget what's the name of the East West. No, it's not East.
Western.
Yeah, and their slogan is "The route of the proud bird."
Oh, wait a minute. There's an even sicker one. We've gone to Alaska, and their slogan is "Keep cool." And you think I'm
Hot
kidding.
stuff. Sounds
No,
good.
no, that's down in Hawaii. Yes.
The early albums that the band had, let's say the first 3 albums, they probably didn't get the airplay that you expected at that time.
Well,
Did that disappoint you or disillusion you?
No, because you see, we've always gotten a very big response from our audiences.
And our parents.
And even though the radio stations, I think in the beginning, radio stations just figured if we ignore them, they'll go away. You know.
Why weren't the radio stations playing the material then?
Well, because we pretty well were contrary to everything that radio stations were playing. I mean, we were very brash and loud. It just wasn't your typical top 40 music. So they just figured we'll starve them. You know, we'll make believe they don't exist and they'll die. But instead, the audiences just got bigger and bigger and said, hey, we want Kiss on the radio. And that's basically what happened with Alive.
Well, at this stage, can we talk a little bit about the Kiss Army?
Okay.
Now, probably people in Australia are unfamiliar with this term, so can you describe what is the Kiss Army?
The Kiss, we have tanks, we have submarines,
we
have the guns and the power, we have the bombs. No, we actually have a very large army of midget perverts who are here to show you the way. What actually happened was we were playing Terre Haute, Indiana. It's an imaginary place that we just made up. And there are many people in it, and what they do besides farming corn is thinking a lot about the easy beats and when they come back. And there was a fan who goes around and keeps you cool. Well, his name was Bill Starkey.
And his brother Richard.
His brother Richard Starkey. And they had a lot of rings on their hands. But anyway, he was a big Kiss fan. He's about 9 feet tall. It's very big.
He got drafted, so he closed the window.
Anyway, he started to call up the radio station, which refused to play our records, and started to demand things. As Bill Starkey, I want a sandwich. I would like
a cup of coffee.
I demand silence, that kind of stuff. And aside from that, I'd also like to hear a Kiss song now and then. And the radio station ignored it. And then he kept calling hour after hour, formed his own Kiss Army. Go ahead, time for fun.
He's in jail now.
And so one thing led to the other, and then they started to have hourly reports from the general. You think I'm kidding?
Yeah,
I'm actually kidding.
Actually, that's pretty much how it started. There was this guy, Bill Starkey, who wanted to hear Kiss on the radio, and they wouldn't play us. And little by little, about 4,000 people in Terre Haute, Indiana, were demanding to hear Kiss. So that was the start of the Kiss Army, and we just figured that it would be a good way to unify all the people that are, into what we're doing.
We have a new we have a new plan. We're planning a Kiss Navy.
And we're going to get the easy beats.
Okay, so in effect, the Kiss Army is really another word for a fan club.
It's
a good idea.
Yeah, it's a little stronger than that. We train them marksmanship.
If you leave the club, you get shot for
desertion.
Yeah.
No, but actually, it's a lot of fun. You get balloons. No, actually, it is because it all goes into our bank account. No, what happens is you get a quarterly newspaper that has pictures of us in various stages of undress, and we have pictures of our parents in it, beating the nuts out of them. It's just fun things that you don't have in Australia. What do you mean we don't have them in Australia? Why do you know that we have sharks on the beaches? You still have them.
What, sharks?
No, Australia. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we have sharks in Australia.
Okay, what's the next question?
Big ones. Thank you, General Simmons. Right, now, moving right along here.
Do you ever say wrong?
Wrong?
Yes, you keep saying right.
It's your accent, actually, that throws me. Okay. He said it.
Right.
It's all Americans say is have a nice day and okay.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Said that.
I never said that either.
Have a shit-house day.
Have a rotten day. Get out of here.
All right, okay, so moving right along, we were up to the Kiss Army and the kids. Now, I understand at one stage the Kiss Army and the US Army joined forces.
Yes.
So what happened?
That was World War II. We won.
Okay, so we've completed the first 12 months and the first 3 albums, and all of a sudden the Kiss Alive album came out. Where was that recorded?
That was primarily done. In Detroit. The thing. Okay, that was primarily.
He said it.
It was primarily done in Detroit. The thing that
like this at all, you know that.
the thing that really differentiated the Kiss Alive album from our first couple of albums was that the Alive album really was about as close to a souvenir package of the live show as you could get. The first 3 albums didn't quite, I mean, you couldn't capture the excitement of our show. So the reason...
We don't have a cage that travels with us.
Right. The reason for the huge sales of Alive was that a lot of people were waiting for that particular album to come out, an album that would really reflect what Kiss was about.
Right. And I understand now that you're going to repackage those first 3 albums and present them. What are they going to be called? The originals.
The originals.
Like the Thin Man.
Yes, Peter Lawford and all those. But the interesting thing about this, it is interesting, believe me, is that the...
it better be.
It's going to be completely new packaging. And the inside sleeves of each one...
Blubber.
Right.
Yes. The inside sleeves of each one of the 3 albums, the soft part, the flaccid sleeve, is going to be the actual front and back cover of the original albums. Plus, there's going to be a 16-page booklet with pictures and stories that, and posters and
jokes.
Okay, so that's
subversive material.
So you've got so you've got your originals, your Kiss Alive, and then your Destroyer album, right?
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about.
The last album we're going to release is going to be Kiss Dead.
Well, let's play Rock and Roll All Night anyway.
Okay.
Let's play House.
I don't want to play house. Every time I play house, I get plastered.
Yeah.
Now look.
You're having a good time.
In the I'm enjoying this. This is fun. The early concerts, I believe I read somewhere. That's Kiss Army stickers going on there.
They were in the morning.
In the early concerts when you weren't headlining, right? I believe there was something sort of. There was a Rory Gallagher show that you appeared on.
Yeah.
And there
one
was
of the first shows. One of the first shows we did was with Rory Gallagher, and I believe it was in. I'll tell you when it was. It was in Cleveland,
Ohio.
Yes, a mythical place in a
We made that
country.
place up too.
And people, we were booed actually when we got up. When we first got on stage, we were booed. I think more because the announcer that announced us was a moron who kept instilling New York before every time he'd say, and here's from New York. And obviously, people in Cleveland, Ohio don't react well to the concept of New York, where there's 24 hours a day of living and there are no cows and boring people. And so people in Cleveland, no, actually, that's one of our favorite places. Yes. They booed us when we got on stage. Needless to say, however, at the end of the show, I think we stole that one.
Yeah.
There was nobody left in the audience.
All right. Now,
what happened?
What did Rory Gallagher think about all this?
No,
huh?
that was another night.
What did Rory think about all this?
We've never really spoken to Rory. You know.
He's always been very nice.
He's always been decent.
Mate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you did start to headline, I think, I read somewhere where it was in Detroit.
It was 3 days at Cobo Hall, 12,500.
12,000. Yeah, right. Now, how did you feel at that stage? Did you think you'd made it then?
Actually, as soon as we stepped up on the stage at the Academy of Music, we thought we'd made it in the sense of, finally getting up on stage and showing people.
Yeah, once you get a chance to put your ideas across to an audience, and they're accepted, then you know. That's 3/4 of the battle. I think by the time we were doing Cobo Hall and playing Detroit, you begin to settle into, being aware that yes, you're famous and you are successful.
Realizing you're famous really, we started to realize we were famous when people started showing up at the concerts with our makeup on. And when we really started getting the tons of fan mail that we get. You can see this room is filled with it right now. I mean, I can't even see the other side of the room.
Looks like someone's going to get the sack tomorrow.
Yes, the sack.
Sacks are not everywhere. Okay. Now.
Yes. My mother would like that.
We'll talk about the marionettes later on. I'd like to get into
Steve
that.
would like that.
They're a new band.
But now,
Steve Marionette.
Steve Marionette.
the stage act, right?
Yes.
The stage act that we've heard so much about in Australia.
It's not
doesn't
true.
exist
But we
at all.
haven't been, right, can you describe, I don't want you to describe the stage
Well,
act.
it's kind of so and so. No, there are 4 guys in the band. That's the first thing. The new stage act is going to be possibly the biggest thing that's ever appeared on stage. We have, to give you an idea of what goes on stage, as a preface, we have seven semi trucks Those are 18-wheel.
Some more.
They're 18.
U-Haul.
No, they're much bigger than that. They have 18 wheels. I don't know if you have them. When we went to England and we saw the trucks, they were much smaller. Go get out of
Now, hang
Peterbilt
on.
is the
Look,
biggest
hang
thing.
on. The guy who's going to make this is going to go bananas. Because he's got to try and splice it all together.
Oh,
You're going to tell us about the stage act.
Well, right now we're in a transitory state. How's that? I've never used that word. Now we're going to be doing the new show, which is based on Destroyer, whereas the show that really made us what we are now is the show that Alive was based on. So the Alive show had a levitating drum platform, bombs going off on stage, Gene spit fire,
Now, didn't something go wrong there and your hair caught on fire at one stage?
Yeah, matter of fact, it was the first show we did in New York City. We were fourth on a bill with Iggy and Blue Oyster Cult headlining, and that was the first time it caught, and then it caught again, about 4 months later, and then since then, it's been about 5 times. I used to have a real, much bigger, much longer hair length, but the worst thing you can do, obviously, when your hair is on fire is to move around a lot, because then it really spreads.
How did you put it out?
You have people that care about the next show. They rescue you from certain doom.
Yeah, hasn't it put you off at all? Like, I wouldn't like to get my hair caught on fire and then go out and face it again.
People do many different things every day that you wouldn't.
I'm surprised what some guys will do for attention.
Yeah.
Really, that's really about it. I wouldn't normally do it. I mean, I don't breathe fire when I'm in a party or something. Here I go again, in Sweden.
Can we talk about Rock and Roll All Night as a song? No.
Yes.
All right, now hang on. I'll rephrase that. Yeah. Songwriting of the band. You've come up with a lot of material. So who writes the songs? I write the songs.
We all do. We all write material. Barry Manilow, that's correct. I write the song.
I write the song.
That make Kiss sing. We all write the tunes. Usually the one that writes it sings it, and if not, then the material, if it doesn't really fit the one who sings it, it gets switched around. But usually the one that writes it sings it, and
Okay, so there's an obvious reason for the success of the band in such a short time, and that is that there's talent prior to any of the stage acts or the outlandish.
The thing you have to realize is before the visual stuff goes into it, you have to write songs. You have to sit in your room with a musical instrument,
right? And they got to be good, huh?
Yeah, we've never been a band that said, let's write a song where we can bring elephants on stage. You write the song, and if you can do something with it visually, fine. If you can't, it's
Most of the tunes that we do on stage are straight ahead tunes that nothing really happens in. But certain, tunes like Firehouse and Detroit Rock City, things that are obviously lend themselves to very visual things, just can't be sung. You mean you want to give somebody something to get off on visually?
That new song, Cow Dung.
Cow Dung?
Yeah.
Really?
The whole audience.
Sounds a bit shithouse. No.
You're going to keep this in, are you?
No, we'll cut that out.
That's good.
Okay. All right, well, would you like to talk about Hotter Than Hell?
No.
Well, that was our second LP. I don't know if it was released in Australia. Was it? It was not. Hotter Than Hell was our second LP. The packaging of it in the U.S. and I think in most of the world went something like this. Hurry. The four of us are on the album cover, the way we usually are. But there's Japanese writing all over it.
Yeah.
And on the back...
Well, it looks like an import from Japan, doesn't it?
Yeah, either that or a very large box of firecrackers.
Yeah. Dynamite album.
Yes, dynamite. Explosive. What we tried to do with Hotter Than Hell was when we were touring between the first and second album, a lot of people were saying to us, hey, you're such a heavy band,
You look much fatter.
Much fatter. You're such a heavy band, and yet your album really doesn't show that. So what we did with the second album was try to overcompensate or compensate and write much heavier material. And the second album was a much heavier, less rock and rolly album.
And Destroyer's different again.
Well, then there was Dressed to Kill. There's a third album, Dressed to Kill, which is much closer to the first album in terms of rock. It's a pure rock and roll album. And then Destroyer, what we tried to do with Destroyer was we had such tremendous, success with Alive that there was a lot of people who figured, well, they can only have that kind of success with a live album. Anything they do in the studio is, just going to be trash. So we went in and tried to do something a little bit more musical and diverse than the albums before it. And that's basically Destroyer. The next album will be closer to the first.